Welcome back to the Snow Bros channel. Meteorologist Matt Makins here, updating what Brian Shields talked about in this morning's video. We're going to update the snowfall total, zooming right down into the Boston, Salem areas, get you caught up there across New England and the Northeast. A lot of snowfall totals to break down for you in addition to what has already fallen. And a big recap of the storm. We've gotten a lot of great feedback from a lot of folks. We've got timelines coming your way, new timelines based on your input of kind of the focal points, some of the constant themes of, hey, throw Providence in there for an example. Timeline for you coming up. Also promising you some footage of what's been happening for our friends and neighbors elsewhere. And again, kind of a general look at that heavy snowfall bullseye. There's a trough that Brian talked about this morning, and that trough is so close to Boston. Boston, this may be a snowstorm to remember if that trough sets up just exactly correctly. We're going to be very specific on that in this video. A lot of snowfall totals, some ice updates for you as well. But just a quick recap of what's been happening. The storm started down to the south. This is Oklahoma. This is not far from Stillwater, from Clay Bertram this morning. He runs cattle down there, feeding constantly, breaking ice for their water, so he's busy in and around Arlington and DC. These came in from Rob Marmot, and Rob walked around town, quite a tour here, watching out for the ice, the snowfall. He said most of the snow happened overnight, and then there was a coating of some ice, kind of sleet, as it was falling here this morning, and things are starting to get quieter this afternoon, but again, around Arlington and the DC area. Here's our storm system. It's not just snow and ice. We have heavy rainfall down to the south and the southeast, marching toward Jacksonville, Savannah, and Charlotte. Around Charlotte and the hills just off to the west, chances for snow and ice there, but most of that activity stays to the north. Let's fly this radar picture in, and again, this is a recap of what's been happening. Rain changing to snow and some icing in the hills. Richmond up toward Philly, there's some pockets of sleet, some icing in there, mostly rain as you look down to the south here. As you look to the north, though, most of Pennsylvania, has been in the form of snowfall. The same for New York. Throughout New England, that is snowfall. A little bit of a hint of some icing is going to be possible in some of the timelines I'll show you. Most of the snowfall maps that appear like this will be from the morning through today into the wrap-up of this storm. So kind of a storm total, if you will. I'll get very specific. Very specific in this video. We'll go with additional snowfall. So two ways of thinking about it. But snowfall for the next several days is going to be confined toward the north and east. Icing almost done. Still a little bit here to discuss from Nashville to Charlotte up to DC, possibly New York, and sections of Long Island still may have some icing. But let's get a recap of the storm. I showed you what has happened. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to watch from tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Storm continues to lift to the north and east. Very quickly it will do so, with the exception of around Boston. There's a little bit of kind of an inverted trough in here that may let the snowfall be very heavy and very focused for a short time into a Monday morning. Here's Monday morning. Let's get into the lunch hour. We're still dealing with heavy snowfall here toward the extreme northeast and sections of the Maritimes into Monday night. Things are still active around Great Lakes. We've got additional snow up into Canada, but the focus remains here, the northeast, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, parts of Mass. Still getting very heavy snowfall, and it continues into Tuesday morning in waves as well. But the focal point, really honestly, is from this video going through the next 24 hours. And again, this video is recorded the afternoon of the 25th. So watch as we get rid of the snowfall chances, the big snow chances here, at least across the country, and the icing as well. So in a few hours, we'll be able to begin to catch our breath and begin the recovery efforts. Here is Sunday at 7 o'clock. I flew that same animation in toward the north and east. So 7 p.m. tonight, still some icing around Baltimore and DC up toward Philly. Rainfall for parts of these areas as well. You get into Jersey, sections of Long Island, you may have rainfall versus snow or a rain-snow combo. But look at the Cape through Providence to Hartford to Boston, very heavy snowfall. Same for Syracuse up toward Burlington. This is Monday early in the morning. We're sleeping. Let's get toward the drive time into work or school. And we have pockets of snow remaining across much of the northeast, but it's getting heavier now out towards Nova Scotia and Halifax, on up into New Brunswick, so around Moncton, Fredericton, getting the heavier snowfall at this point. Not to say that Boston or anybody else in New England is done just yet. We still have wraparound snow to continue through Monday into Monday night into Tuesday morning. Really, it's going to be Tuesday progressively into Tuesday afternoon and evening when we still have pockets of light to moderate snowfall, but that's when we begin to settle things down from this latest storm system, if you will. Here are your timelines. Let's go to Richmond first, and we'll work our way up kind of the coastline, if you will. A couple more hours worth of some rain chances, some icing chances. Really, it's icing is the dominant form. That goes through about 1 o'clock Monday morning. As you go through Monday's temperatures, it's going to get cold at times, you know, where you may have a high around freezing, but mostly teens, 20s, and then eventually we cool off to the single digits from Monday night into Tuesday morning. Let's go up to D.C. Most of our precip chances are on their hind legs, if you will. Kind of give up on us throughout this evening. Temperature-wise, teens and 20s for most of the day tomorrow, but early Tuesday morning, 7 o'clock, bus stop right there, 7 degrees is all for D.C. Quite a chill there. So that's snow and sleet's going to take a while to melt off, obviously. In and around Philly, we've still got some chances for some precip, mostly in the form of a little bit of icing, maybe a rain-snow mix or rainfall through 10 o'clock tonight. Temperature-wise tomorrow, going through the midweek, mostly teens and 20s. For early Tuesday morning, we're down to 10 degrees in parts of Philly. So that's going to be a wind chilly morning there for sure. New York City, we've got chances for some freezing rain or icing. Probability of snow continues as well. Both of those go through Monday at 7 a.m. to about Monday midday into the afternoon when things begin to wrap up. Again, the bulk of the accumulation pretty much has happened. Temperature-wise in and around the city, tomorrow teens and 20s into Tuesday morning. A chilly start with low teens. That's without any sort of wind or wind chill. Into Hartford now. Hartford, look at your snow timeline. Going to stay heavy. High chances for snowfall continue for several hours. We're going to go through Monday at 7 o'clock before we begin to taper things off. You're going to be cold with 7 degrees. Tuesday morning, that's at about 7 o'clock there in Hartford. Obviously cold there. Into Providence, we have snow chances that continue here as well up until about Monday evening or so. So Monday through dinner. Into the later evening, still chances for snowfall in Providence by Tuesday morning, 8 o'clock. Wednesday morning, down to 8 degrees. You know what I mean, right? And then Wednesday morning, we're going to get down to 6 degrees here in Providence. Very cold mornings the next several mornings. Into Boston, snow chances remain, but they go all the way up beyond Monday evening into early Tuesday morning before light to moderate snowfall returns. Temperature-wise, mostly teens and 20s. Into early Wednesday morning or so, we're down to about 10 degrees there in Boston. Continuing our trek northward, let's bring in Portland this time. A lot of folks asking for Portland weather, so here we go. Timeline on snowfall goes for quite a while. You don't see it taper off really until Tuesday morning, right around Tuesday school start time, if you will. Temperatures stay in the teens, except for the mornings. We're getting down to 8 to 7 degrees in those early mornings there in Portland. Not leaving Canada out, Halifax, St. John's, your timelines are coming up in a second. Snow totals from where Brian's video left off, so Sunday morning, through the rest of the snow, okay? So he had bigger totals because of the timeline. I'm updating about 12, well, not 12 hours, about 6 hours, 7 hours after his video. So we're not counting some of that snowfall that came through the overnight hours. You get my meaning. But across the Northeast into sections of Canada, this is the additional snowfall. Around 20 inches in Boston, Syracuse 14, Buffalo at 9, D.C. This accounts for some of that morning stuff. Let's fly around here a little bit. So we're looking at kind of some of the storm totals here from Pennsylvania up into New York, stretching out throughout the rest of New England, all the way out toward the Cape. You can see the variation here, but a lot of folks on this map are well more than a foot, close to 1.5 feet. Some are at 2 feet. As you look just around D.C., again, we're kind of pulling the snow back because most of it's done. We could potentially, from, say, lunch hour on Sunday through the rest of the storm, potentially pick up a new 2 in Alexandria or 4 in Baltimore. But really, we're on the hind legs of that system. So some of those snowfall totals obviously have already fallen on the ground. Same for a lot of these map views. So what I'm going to do differently this time is try to account for that, knowing that you're not watching when that model ran at the lunch hour, knowing that you're probably watching perhaps during the football game or closer to dinner time or throughout the evening. So these snowfall maps, the next several you're going to see, is accounting for any snowfall in addition to what's fallen on your place, starting at about sunset tonight, going through the rest of the storm. So sunset beyond, Salem 11 to 18 additional inches, Boston 10 to 17 on top of what you have, 11 to 18 in Lowell, up to Concord 8 to 14, Springfield 7 to 11, 5 to 8 in Hartford, 5 to 8 in Providence, New Bedford about 3 to 5. You go out toward the Cape, and there's going to be sections of the Cape that do more than about 3 to 5, probably more like a 5 to 10 inch range as you go toward the northern tip of the Cape. But by and large, you can see the totals here. And I put on the highways and the interstate system so you can kind of see the localized impact. But what I want to point out with this tight zoom in here is if you're traveling up the coastline, say from Salem, going toward Portland, look at some of these deeper colors here. There's going to be some of that trough that Brian mentioned. It's just basically if you were to spread salt and pepper out on a flat piece of paper, that's a broad brush of snowfall. If you fold that paper, everything runs down in the middle, that's a trough. You're focusing all your energy, your water in this trough, and that's where the bigger snowfall totals are. So we could see that potentially somewhere along 95 and the coastal one here with some deeper pockets. Another 20 inches would be possible in some of those cases. Localized, but deep. Impressive snowfall amounts. We're going to go kind of state by state, if you will, or region by region. Here is Maine. A lot of folks in Maine have been shouting out that they need more details. So you got Augusta, Lewiston, Waterville. Let's take another map view here. This is more down to the south. So we kind of zoomed out of Boston and we're now kind of looking at the south. And you can see some totals here trying to account for really very little left in the storm system for New York or Long Island, Trenton. That's why you don't see much total there. But if you go toward the 95 and upwards, northward, that's where you're going to see some of those totals continue. I'm just trying to throw out some locations we have not mentioned here in some other videos, and a lot of shout outs because of the comments section. In and around Worcester, about 9 to 14 additional snowfall. Again, sunset tonight through the rest of the storm. We've got Vermont, we've got New Hampshire, sections of New York on the map. You can find your spot here, maybe press pause on the video, take a look. Those are your totals in addition for the rest of the storm. And another map view out into New York. Don't want to ignore the kind of the lake effect that's happening between Syracuse to Watertown, Kingston, down toward Rochester. There's going to be a pocket in there, very heavy snowfall, a couple of feet at least. Some lake effect enhancement of the snow banding there. But you can see the additional snowfall sunset tonight through the rest of the snow. Our storm, we're moving everything northward, right? So everything kind of 80 and 70 southward is pretty much wrapping up throughout this evening. Additional stuff is going to be heavy up here for the rest of the northeast. Now, I mentioned I didn't want to forget Halifax or St. John's. Here are your timelines. The storm is headed your way. Snow ramps up in Halifax late tonight, Sunday at 11 to 2 a.m. Monday. That's when you're going to start to see it get heavier and heavier, and it stays pretty persistent throughout the day tomorrow. It's really Tuesday morning, mid-morning-ish, when things begin to taper off. Your temperatures now in Celsius for you will be single digits and teens below zero. St. John's, your chance for snow. Light to moderate pockets of snowfall, occasional during the early morning hours Monday, going through Tuesday morning. Sporadic bands of snowfall, maybe light to moderate, then some heavy. Your temperatures, teens below zero and 20s below zero. And finally, with that map, we've got Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. We're looking at about 15 to 25 centimeters. Perhaps down towards Yarmouth, we could get closer to 35. You look at pockets here across Newfoundland, Labrador. We're looking at kind of a general consensus of close to 15 centimeters, upwards of 30 in some cases. Some pockets will be higher, some pockets will be lower, but that's kind of general case here for the Maritimers. To wrap this update for you, we've got plenty more throughout the week. The storm is still going. We haven't had even half our snowfall yet. Well, depending on when you're watching this video, obviously. But more snow on the way. Let us know how much you are getting, the conditions where you are. It helps us refine our forecast numbers. Where does that trough set up and linger? That's the one between Boston on up toward Maine, that coastal area. Where does that trough set up? Who's going to get those deeper totals? That'll evolve this evening and overnight. Plus, snowy and cold pattern remains throughout this weekend and next weekend. Additional storms may form, one perhaps next weekend. We've got additional videos coming your way. I know you're subscribed. If not, do so already. We're building a wonderful community here. Great to connect with you. We'll have additional updates coming your way. Myself and Brian Shields will throughout this week. Don't want to leave anybody out, so if you feel left out, leave it in the comments. We're watching them. We'll reply.